Welcome to Crafty Girls. Today I am taking you through the full process of making a silicone mold from a 3D printed cast, pouring the silicone and casting it in Gypsunite. So let's get started. The first thing I had to do was I had to make the cast for 3D printing. So on the left you can see that is the final cast. On the right hand side I was just showing how I did it. So I had 3 different sized circles. One was bigger, one was smaller, and then the size of the cast of the coaster. I was just showing there that the see-through circle, which was slightly smaller than the outer one, was raised up slightly so that I have a base on the bottom of the outer circle for the casting. And I was putting in the actual coaster circle here and centralizing it so that it was in the middle. And there it is. You can see there's a gap at the top because that will be the bottom of your actual mold when you pour the silicone in. And there we go. I was going to do 2, but I thought no, seeing that it's my first one and it's only a trial, I didn't want to waste any silicone if it didn't work. So as usual, you export it as an STL, which is the file that the Bambu Studio can read. And it was ready to go into the Bambu Lab Studio. So there we go. I have a Bambu A1 and I brought the file in, and I wanted it to be quite smooth because obviously we don't want the coaster to have any rough surfaces. So I did it on a really fine setting and I made sure that I ironed the top surface. I did it in concentric because it's circular and the concentric irons it in a circular motion. So that is what I chose to do. And here I was just having a look to see how fine the lines are. They really are fine. So hopefully it's going to print out nicely. So then all I needed to do was send it to the machine and get it to print. An hour 47 I think it was that it took to print. It does take quite a while because it is a very fine setting and the ironing and the sides are reasonably thick as well, so it does take a while. But there we go, we are nearly finished on the actual build plate, and it looked really good when it was finished, so I was hopeful that it was going to work, but of course you only know once you have actually poured that silicone in. So here I have my homemade mold release liquid. I got this recipe from my chatty assistant. It is rubbing alcohol and we call it vaseline, or it's basically just your petroleum jelly, and you mix the two together, and then I put it in a hot bath because the petroleum jelly seems to, obviously, it thickens up when it's at room temperature. So because I don't have any mold release, I asked him if he could give me a recipe, and I'm hoping that it works, but I obviously needed to melt the petroleum jelly inside the rubbing alcohol just to make sure that it would go through the spray bottle. So while that was sitting melting, hopefully, I got my liquid silicone. It is 100 to 3. That is the ratio of this. And I made sure that I didn't pour it out of the container because I knew it was going to make a huge mess and it would run down the side of the little bucket and I didn't want any of that mess. So I decided to use a spoon. So I will fast forward until I get to spooning out all my liquid silicone. So like I said, the ratio is 100 to 3. So I thought, let me do 100. I did have some left over and I did use that for something else. But for now, we are sticking with our coaster. The purple additive is in a tiny little bottle and he is bright purple. So it was 100, it was 102, but I just used, I just left it at 102, and luckily that was, I nearly poured half the bottle in. My heart actually stopped. I think it did for a second because I thought, oh my goodness, please don't tell me. But luckily it actually ended up on 3. So here I am just giving it a stir. It doesn't take very long to stir it because it does actually mix together quite easily. It's not like your resin. You don't have to sit and stir it for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or however long you want to stir. Once the color is all the same, it's ready to pour. So it doesn't take that long to actually stir the liquid silicone and get it all incorporated together. Obviously, the more you have in your container, the longer it will take to stir because you've got to get all of it mixed together. But this was only 100 grams, so it wasn't that much to actually get mixed together and get it all one color. I don't have a bubble remover or any machine that can take out bubbles from my resin and my silicone, so I just gave it a good bash to make sure that as many of the bigger bubbles that were in there I got out, but I was hoping that it was going to get rid of its own bubbles. So now what I needed to do was to, which I should have done before, but actually in hindsight it didn't really take long at all, was to spray the mold release onto the mold casing. I should have done it before because once you mix the silicone, you should actually try and pour it straight away. But of course, I got sidetracked and I only did the mold release afterwards. But you can see how it sprays really nicely. And when it comes out, it is quite runny and you think, oh, that's never going to dry. But the actual alcohol does dry really quickly. So it didn't take very long. I was still starting to panic a little bit because I thought, yeah, there you can see I was looking at my silicone thinking, I hope it doesn't set. Because this does set quite quickly. It within about 3 or 4 hours, it normally does set. But I was not too sure whether it was going to start setting in the container. So I just was giving my mold a little bit of a waft there to try and get rid of the alcohol. And then all of a sudden it was gone. So I was happy that I was ready then to start pouring the silicone. Yeah, I think I was just giving it a bit of a blow just to make sure that it was dry. And we are about to pour our silicone. I was really excited about doing this because I have, like, obviously, I have a 3D printer and I would really love to be able to make my own molds. Obviously, a coaster mold I would get online or wherever, local or wherever. So this was just a test to make sure that it would work. But if I ever need anything that I can't get online or someone else can't make for me, I would like to be able to make my own. So I was hoping that this did work. And here I was just going around it to make sure that the silicone was in that gap so that I didn't get any bubbles. Because if I'd got any bubbles in there, that would literally ruin the mold, because you would end up with bubbles every single time you did your casting of your Jesmonite or your Gypsunite or whatever you were going to put in there, your resin or anything like that. So I had to make sure that all the bubbles were out because I didn't want it to, well, hoping that I was going to get it out of the actual cast was my first worry, and my second worry was I didn't need to have any air bubbles in there. So here I actually took quite a long time bashing it on my desk because I needed to get, like I said, I needed to get all the bubbles out. I didn't want any bubbles left in there. So I will fast forward this because I do quite a bit of bashing and crashing. So I actually left it overnight, even though, like I said before, it only actually takes a few hours to dry this. And the moment of truth was here. I really was hoping that it would come out of the casting container, and as I was working this, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I don't know if this is going to work. It was coming away a little bit and I was very hopeful, but then every time I tried to grab it, it sort of popped back in again. And then I got it a little bit further out and tried again, and it didn't want to come out. I was trying to grip it with my fingers. It was giving me such a hard time. But it was getting further and further out, and I was getting more and more excited about the prospect that it was actually going to work. And oh my goodness, I was so excited when this thing did that. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That is so cool. And there we go. We have a silicone mold, and it was perfect. There was no air bubbles. There's no air bubbles at all. And it was, look, it wasn't perfectly smooth. I didn't sand the actual 3D cast. I left it like it was. I think I forgot to mention that I actually sprayed the 3D cast with lacquer. I did 2 coats of clear lacquer because that sealed it as well so that the silicone wouldn't stick to it. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I don't want to have to redo this whole voiceover. So yes, I did seal it with 2 coats of clear lacquer, and that does obviously help as well with the mold release, and it came out. I was so excited. So here I am making my gypsumite mix. I didn't put any colors or anything in it, and I was in such a hurry to do this because I was so excited that I didn't actually I should have got more air bubbles out than I did. I normally bang it down quite a lot and get out a lot. I'll wipe the air bubbles up the side, but I don't know. I was just so excited to actually pour this that I didn't bother. I just was beside myself with excitement because this thing had actually worked. And here again, I'm just giving it a wiggle and a bump and a few drops on the counter and a few more wiggles just to get out as many of the air bubbles. And I've found if you blow on if you blow on it as well, if you blow on the surface, it does actually get some of the air bubbles out, but I didn't show that on camera. That I was just using the back of it. I did show it on camera. Sorry, I didn't think that I'd showed that. I blew it so hard that I actually blew the gypsunite out of the mold. Sorry, I thought I had cut that out, and now I'm doing the voiceover. I hadn't cut it out. But okay, so don't be like the three little pigs and blow that hard, because yeah. Okay, so here, sorry, I'm still laughing. So here I am unmolding it because it had gone through its nice drying process, and there we have our coaster. I have got one or two little air bubbles on the side, and that was my fault. Like I said, I should have actually got rid of more of the air bubbles, but that's not in the mold. That is my mistake of not making sure that there was not too many air bubbles left in the actual gypsumite. But all in all, I am so excited that I'm going to be able to make my own molds. And I'm hoping that you enjoyed the project. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you hit the bell, it will let you know when I do any more creative DIY videos and mold making videos, which I can do now, and any other crafty experiments. So until next time, have a great one.